Hey guys, in this video I wanted to show you how easy it is to achieve a film-like look for your videos, for your films, using DaVinci together with this plugin called Dehancer. My last film that I just put out, The Storm, if you haven't checked it out, please do so. I colored that one using this plugin. Now, I'm collaborating with Dehancer, which is this film-like color grading plugin. And if you end up liking what can be done with it, I got a 10% discount code for you. Now, I'm not exactly a colorist, and I see a lot of people using tons and tons of nodes in their DaVinci projects, and that's not exactly me. I think I like to keep things a little bit more simple. But let's just say, if there's a way to get to the end result a little bit faster, I think I'm on that road. And that's where Dehancer comes into play. After you've balanced out all the footage in your timeline on a clip-by-clip basis, which I've done here, I'm using some cool shots from the documentary The Storm. And what I like to do for the final grade is I like to go to the timeline viewer here and add a serial node onto this window, or whatever you call this space over here. But anyways, everything you do here affects the whole timeline. That's the main thing. And this is where I like to put my final grade and final look for the film. A lot of people put a serial node or a few even at the end of their node chain on each individual clip, but I like to do it this way. So all I gotta do is go to my effects and find the Dehancer, drag and drop it over. So already the Kodak Vision 3 250D, that looks amazing, but you've got all these other film profiles to choose from. I gravitated towards the Kodak Aero Color 4, which is here, and it already looks really, really, really incredible. So I basically don't really need to do even much at this point. The things that I did, however, is because you've got all these also print profiles to choose from. So I wanted a little bit more of a contrasty look. And so basically what I went for is the Kodak 2383, but you've got a couple of other options to choose from over here, but I went for this one and get a really nice contrasty, cool look for the film. I did not do much more, to be honest, for the final look and the final grade for my film. One thing that I did is I did add halation, which you can add over here, and I did add bloom. So I got a little bit more of a glow here, a little bit more of a film look. And another thing I did is I did mess with the grain. Where is it? Here we go. So I basically just lowered it a tad, so it's not as bad. I mean, it looks nice, but I just liked it a little less aggressive. That looks really good. I had a very good time finding the final look for this film with this plugin, and I don't have a lot of bad things or negative things to say about Dehancer, the plugin. The only thing that was hard for me is that when I switched on the halation and the bloom, my computer had a hard time playing back the footage at real time. So that might be a hardware problem, but whenever I've used DaVinci's own halation, for instance, it's been able to keep up. So I'm not sure how this is much heavier than that, but it is, and it was having a hard time playing back, which is not a huge deal. But as soon as I switch off the bloom and the halation, it's able to play back normally. But as soon as I switch them on, it starts having trouble to play back at a normal rate. In any case, it's a great tool. I like how easy it is to achieve the film look with it, literally at the click of a button. And you can go check them out yourself at dehancer.com. And when you do decide to give it a go, you can use my code here to get a 10% discount. I want to show you a little bit more about my color grading process in DaVinci, because I feel like it is going to be helpful for you. Maybe it's just interesting to see how I do this. So let's go ahead and color grade these next 3 clips here. All right, so this kind of goes without saying, but always do all your primary corrections before your color space transform, and especially also your grade. So first thing that you want to do is balance out your footage. All right, so we've got these three clips to work with. I like to place a couple of nodes here. And the first one of them will be all your primary corrections. And then the next one is usually my saturation. And then I do the color space transform after that. And then sometimes I do a couple more after that, but let's start with the color space transform, which is my third node here. So let's just go ahead and find our color space transform and drop it onto that node. And your input color space is your whatever your camera is doing. So for me, it's the S-Log S-3 Cine, and then S-Log 3. And then output color space is going to be Rec 709, and my output gamma, I've been doing Rec 709A. So, I mean, this was already shot pretty nicely. Not to toot my own horn too much, but it looks pretty nice already, just with the color space transform. In any case, let's go to our primaries. So what we want to do here is we want to adjust the blacks to crush them a little bit because they're a little too bright. And guys, always look at your waveforms. I'm not going to go into full detail about how to read them, but once you understand how to read your waveforms, it's very helpful. Bring the shadows down a little bit too. Gonna bring those mid-tones a little bit down too. I was going for this pretty silhouetted image here, this one specifically. So we're gonna give it a ton of contrast basically. And speaking of contrast, we're gonna pump that up a little bit. And yeah, usually I put the mid detail up to around 10. We're gonna do that. And let's see, cool it down a little bit so it's not as bright, as warm. So change the temperature a little bit cooler. And we're gonna put the tint a little bit more towards the purple. Okay, so I feel like we crushed the shadows a little too harshly here. So let's bring them back up a little bit. And let's see if we bring the highlights, the gain down a little bit so we get a little more detail in the sky there. I mean, that's looking pretty nice, and can toggle it on and off just like that. Looks super nice. This is not gonna look the same, obviously, as my as it all does in the film, because we're making a whole new grade here, and it's very difficult to balance it to the same exact look. But yeah, that's what I do. So I'm pretty happy with how that looks already, except I wanted to give it a little bit more saturation. Like now it looks a little desaturated. So what I do for that is I change the color space of my second node to HSL, hue, saturation, luminance. And then I go to my channels and I switch off channels 1 and 3 just to leave only the saturation up. So now what we can do is we can use the gain and gamma wheels, so midtones and highlights, basically to give us a little bit more saturation. So we're bumping up the highlights, let's say like 1.15, that looks pretty good. And then also the midtones, not too much, just a little bit, just a little. That looks really, really nice, guys. Okay, so this is what we did with the saturation. And this works a lot better than the saturation wheel on your DaVinci over here. The primaries window, or whatever this window is called. The saturation just kind of destroys the image a little bit. And it doesn't look as balanced when you start bringing more color in with saturation. So this way just works a whole lot better. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's close the effects panel over here. So then we can basically bring in an extra node over to the side. So typically what I like to do is I like to give more focus to whatever is in the center of my frame or whatever I'm like trying to draw the attention to if it doesn't naturally happen. So I call this one usually lamp or whatever. So basically this is something that I do to just bring the attention more towards whatever it is that I want the attention to go toward. So we can go ahead and add a circular mask here. Basically, okay, so we add the mask to this one, and then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make it a little bit more of an oval shape. So this is essentially just going to be attracting our attention more towards where it already will go, just a little bit. So we're gonna invert this mask. So you see over here now we're only affecting the sides. So actually what I like to do is I like to bring the contrast down on that. So the most contrasty part of the image is what I want to be looking at. So basically it's kind of like everything else is now flatter than the middle. So your eye is more drawn towards the more contrasty part of the image, which is what we're doing here. And then I just like to darken it a tiny bit. So to see what's going on here, see what's going on? That looks pretty good, except I want it a little more dark. So I want the blacks to be a bit darker. There, that's subtle. And subtle is key here. We don't want to overdo anything. Talking way too much. Anyways, okay, so I like how that's looking. We don't need to work on it more. Let's just leave it be. And so now we've already done all this work for our first one. So basically what I want to do now is I just want to copy this, everything we did, and then basically work from there. So here we have in the color memories, this is what I do. I just save this one on memory A. So Alt-1, if you're working on a Mac, Alt-1. And then we go over to our next image and literally just press Command-1. Boom. We have brought in the same exact grade to the next image, which now looks insanely bad. So we're not going to leave it like that. Let's disable the lamp and let's disable the saturation. Okay, already like when we disable the saturation, we're getting a really nice image straight off the bat. Okay, so in the primaries, we're gonna increase the gain, so the highlights a little bit, and we're gonna increase the midtones a little bit to give a little more detail to the right side of his face here. I'm not trying to say that this is the only way to do things or that this is, you know, something extremely special, but I thought I'd show you what I do because it's simple and it's something that's very easily achievable for just about anybody. Let's bring the saturation both. Yeah, we're gonna reset that. And the mid ones, well, I think I even want to desaturate it a little bit. So I'm bringing the midtones tiny bit down. Yeah, I like how that's looking. Yeah, looks good. And then we can introduce the same thing into this that we did before, where we bring the attention to where we want it. This is almost like a vignette, what I'm doing, but it's not exactly a vignette because we're just like creating less contrast on the side to bring your attention to the more contrasty part of the image. Now, that looks really good. So we're gonna leave it like that. I don't know. The sky feels a little bit like it's missing some color. So I'm gonna just do another node, and we're gonna attack the blues. let's try to do it with the color slicing, which is really cool. So let's call this color slice. All right, so we're gonna try to attack the blues. Bring them. Yeah. This density, is this density? Saturation, and this is density. Okay, so we're gonna make it dense and more saturated, just a little bit. And we're gonna change the hue of it a tiny bit more towards cyan. And then cyan tones, we're gonna also increase the saturation of it just to bring that ocean back into the picture. And actually we want that to be less dense. Okay. That's looking really nice. So essentially we just bringing a little bit more color to the background with the blues. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, so for that we added another node. Other than that, I think it looks really good right now. So I'm gonna leave it be. All right, so we're gonna use the memory 1 for this shot, which is just an incredible shot. I was using the 75mm lens on this, and I actually just I set my camera on the sand, which it got super sandy, but my tripod didn't go low enough essentially. So I set it on the sand and I made a little hole there for it to stand on, and it just turned out to be this incredible shot. Okay, so let's paste over the information from the first image that we created. And once again, the saturation is going crazy. All right, so we're gonna take the lamp off and let's turn off the saturation for now, and let's just work with our primaries. Okay, so we're gonna need to cool this down a little bit. I think right here, -500. Okay, that's pretty good, because it just looked way too orange. We're gonna bring our blacks up just a tad, and let's bring our midtones down. We're still gonna get that silhouetted nice image, and our shadows up a little bit to give a little more detail into the shadows. I like the little flare that's here as well. I don't know how visible it is, but it's got this really nice flare. It's subtle, but it's nice. Primaries are pretty good. And then let's tackle the saturation. Let's just reset both of them. I think we want it just a little bit more saturated in the highlights. And let's bring down the saturation. I guess we're gonna leave it at 0 for the midtones. So that's looking really nice to me. And I honestly don't even want to put the lamp or whatever you would call it on this one, because I just want to keep it clean. It looks really nice. And I think the attention is where it should be anyways. So I'm not worried about it. It's a cool shot. And that's pretty much it. So basically we've graded 3 images and we've done a pretty good job at it. We haven't exactly graded them, but we've balanced out 3 images. So now all that's left to do is to go to the timeline viewer over here, add a serial node, and let's go ahead and go to the effects, slap on that Dehancer on there, and create a beautiful film look just like that. Just like that.